Hi there, this is a new session for Aerodrome Finance. So previously I received a suggestion asking me to cover this, so this is what it is. So as usual, whenever I cover a new crypto, there's some initial or groundwork to be done because we're starting with an entire clean chart, so I have to borrow some text. So bear with me with the process, so it may take a minute or two longer, but it's also would be interesting for new community members that haven't seen me doing it from scratch. So let's get started. We'll start with the weekly first as usual. Even though AERO has a very short history from February 2024, there's still some kind of Wyckoff pattern that I would say I can tell from there. Let me borrow the text from Bitcoin. So I'll use the blue ones because Bitcoin is going through a two scenario or two hypothetical scenario situation. I'll borrow the obvious ones or the common ones over there. This is the distribution cycle text. I'll also borrow the accumulation cycle text. So copy that and let's go to AERO. We'll need the key levels as well, but as of this moment I'm not going to put it, so Wyckoff goes first. So basically I will start with this distribution cycle here. Assuming this was the accumulation cycle, what we see there was the buying climax. PSY was pretty much this period, and automatic reaction. Not much of a second test, but this seems to be the LPSY, and then not even a sign of weakness. So I'll keep this because we may need those either in the front or at the back sooner or later. So the backup and LPSY was somewhere around here. Let's determine where the selling climax was. This, I would say, is the likely selling climax. There was an LPSY over here. Also automatic reaction, buying climax, and this was the automatic rally. It came down for a second test over here, as well as another test at the end. So whether or not we call that a second test or a spring that went below the selling climax about the price, basically they're all tests. Whether it tests one time, two times, three times, or 10 times, it doesn't matter. So sign of strength, not significant. No. Preliminary support maybe around here, because the history is just too few and the cycles were pretty violent. I think it's common across new coins that they would go through such kind of period with very short-lived cycles, and then they eventually have better shapes, much like 8-bit, 16-bit, or 32-bit pixel art in game, or just pixel art. So here, I would say the preliminary support was around this stage and the selling climax right there. Automatic rally happened back in May this year, and it came down for a second test, not very deep, back in early June. And then we have this backup and last point of support period. So there was a sign of strength over here, just that the retracement is very shallow. So I'll still consider that a sign of strength. because if I change it to a line chart, it will be clear that there was a dip after that. And now we're going through the PSY. It looks to me we're going through the PSY period, and the buying climax may be happening in next week or two. I just put in the tag here because the volume bars, especially the green ones, looks pretty encouraging for the bull team. So it looks like there's demand over there. It's just a matter of time when these volume is going to push the price to the buying climax this time. So back in February 2024, the volume compared to what we had in mid-June is like more than double. So during the run towards the peak, the volume was more or less like what we are seeing now. So hopefully that continues, and that will become the fuel for the push towards the buying climax. And one thing that if you're hoping to hold Aerodrome for long is this key thing over here. So we see higher peaks. I'm not talking about the edge of the wick. I'm talking about the exact close of the candle. So if this candle, this new buying climax, is touching this yellow dashed line, that means it's a good sign because it has an appreciating or higher peak rather than like a declining peak, meaning maybe waning demand. Even if it stays flat, that means it's still a kind of stable sign. I would say the demand is still there. Obviously you have to take a look at the tokenomics as well, whether the supply has changed a lot, so that you have to factor in when you study this. But the key thing is the peaks are very important, because some they have lower and lower and lower peaks, so if you try to hold them for long, that's not a good thing for you. Having said that, I just want to add one more thing. That's the key levels. So we have all these key levels for all the crypto. So I'm borrowing this from Bitcoin right now. If we go back to AERO, I'll put it in here, and I'll unlock and check. Maybe I just want to undo the page, but it seems like it doesn't work. So I'll remove them because they're too close to the candlesticks. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I want them to be a little bit farther to the right. So a bit of adjustment first. Let's say I keep the red level, ignore the numbers for the time being. I have to adjust to orange so that it touches those tests level. This will be one of the key levels for us to observe, and that's around 0.52, I would say. I'll remove whatever trailing. Yep, that's 0.52. Lock it, and this one over here is 0.3. 0.3. Okay. And this one over here. So the automatic reaction is right there, automatic rally right here, PS period there as well, sign of strength. So I would say I keep the yellow line over here. This has sufficient Wyckoff stages for me to determine as a key level. So let's say it's 0.82. Remember, a level is not just one price point. It can be maybe a few percent higher or lower every time it comes to, or the price comes to test it. And eventually we have this. I would say, looking at what we have here, as well as this change of candle or overlapping area, this I would move it up to roughly this level. So this is 1.17. So that's the green key level over here, and we just passed it, and we're going to test, or we're testing basically this level. This level, you can see the LPSY, the automatic reaction, this preliminary support top. So let me push it a little bit. Yeah, that's 1.4 or 1.5 actually. Let's say 1.49. Interesting number. I just want to let you know a concept about human brains anchoring to like unit numbers, digits. So rather than 1.49, our brains like to anchor towards 1.5, like $1.50. So this, even though it looks weird, remember I said it's a range, so it doesn't really affect our decision that much when it comes to this point. So one more before we get to the daily chart. So this blue key level, right now I will put it at where the buying climax closed back in April 2024. So that's around 2.03. Okay, and eventually the purple. Basically, this has to come here, where the buying climax back in December last year was. So just want to make sure these are locked so we don't move it accidentally later when we come revisit the chart. So this was about 2.21, and I just want to clear out the trailing digits. Okay, that's it. We've got the key levels. Right now, the price got rejected from the light blue key level. So next time it will come challenge it again and eventually show us where the buying climax would be. However, remember, a PSY period can contain red candles. So even if we close higher this week, there's only 19 hours left for this week's candle. Next week can come back to test the green level, and maybe it will eventually find support somewhere between the green and this light blue, and then go up to the buying climax. So don't get overexcited and think the price surge will happen next week. So that's the big picture. Kind of optimistic for the bulls. I would say while it looks like mostly it will head towards the buying climax, there is a chance, like I said in the beginning, if there is basically waning support or the support halved compared to last year, this may be the buying climax. That's a very slim chance, but I have to tell you that, so you have to keep in mind while we hope for the better scenario to happen. The worst case scenario is that the buying climax has already happened, which as of now we can't tell from the chart because there should be an automatic reaction. So interesting if it happens this way, that would be like too close to the accumulation zone. So let's hope that's not the case. I don't think there will be a squeeze, yep, not yet. So time for micro. In the daily chart, here we see quite noisy patterns as we expect in the daily chart. So this time I'll borrow some text from Ethereum. So same thing, just in red. Buying climax, second test, up thrust, sign of weakness. I need an automatic reaction. I don't want a blue line. And I'll keep up thrust of the distribution for later because we have up thrust to use. And up LPSY, we need preliminary support. Here we don't have a PSY as well, so I'll take it. Selling climax, second test, automatic rally, sign of strength. spring may or may not happen. I'll take back up the last point of support, and then we go back to the Aerodrome Finance. So if I paste these tags over here, one tricky part is we have gone through so many cycles already. So I'll just pick the closest one and we'll add the old ones over time. So what I see, there was a distribution cycle back in April, May period, all the way to June, and that there was a selling climax. So not very obvious if it's like a tiny chart, but if we look at here, if I zoom out, oh no, zoom in, it's a lot clearer. And we have an automatic rally, the second test, some form of last point of support, back up. Not much sign of strength over there. I'll take this out for now, and let's see what tags are over there. This preliminary support was this stage over there, and PSY obviously during this period, automatic reaction right there. LPSY, there was one here, I'll keep that buying climax, second test, and that's a sign of weakness. There was an LPSY over here, and up thrust back in late July. And what we're seeing now is likely the up thrust of the distribution, I would say. Unless that this period was a quick accumulation cycle, but like in a matter of 5 days, that's really rare. Not impossible, but rare. This you can still consider a sign of weakness over there. It's a higher one than this, so I think that's what's happening right now. So if my observation is correct, after this upthrust of the distribution, it's going to come down to challenge these support lines, the green, the yellow, and eventually the orange. But remember, this is only the daily time frame. If we go to the weekly, like I said in the beginning, it's not over yet. So if that happens in the daily, that it comes down from the upthrust of the distribution, that means it comes down to test the green level and maybe even the yellow. So what does it look like in the weekly chart? So that means it's going to do this thing over here. Remember I said it's totally possible during the PSY period that it comes down to test the previous supports. So when that happens, don't be surprised. So the big picture, the macro scale, it may still be going up, but intermediate fluctuations may trigger something like price drop to a level where an accumulation needs to happen before it goes further up. One thing is very tempting that I want to revisit is whether this is really some form of selling climax plus a quick like accumulation out. But for now, I tend not to think that way. I just want to quickly draw this upward channel as well, because currently the price has clearly gone outside of this upward channel. So when that happens, a lot of times the price would return to the upward channel because it's just went too crazy. So combining what I said is like more likely it's going to come down to retest this level, the green, and maybe even the yellow. So I hope it doesn't go that way to the yellow, maybe somewhere in between the green and the yellow, and then it goes up again. In candlestick, it doesn't have to be closing here, so the wick can go deep but it ended up closing quite high. So in this, we'll see in the daily chart it may come down back to the box and then eventually come and retest again. So if a buying climax really happened above this light blue level, going to the blue level over here, in the daily chart, it'll be interesting because the accumulation would happen at a very high level, somewhere close to the buying climax back in late June, and that's possible in a daily chart. So that's why it's very tricky trying to put in the Wyckoff lens in both the time frame, because in daily is riding on the wave on a weekly chart. So some of these can well be an accumulation happening. So it's like it's got many climaxes and upthrust after distribution, but like to a certain extent, if we look at this, it's like there was a buying climax happened right over there, and then returns to an accumulation, and this was like a very quick accumulation over there. Likewise for this one. So it's very tricky, especially for a new coin and also in the daily chart. So let's keep this picture for now, assuming this scenario is what it is at the moment, just that I've got reservation because the weekly shows that the buying climax hasn't happened yet. If daily is really going to follow the weekly, so this shouldn't be the upthrust of the distribution, or there may be an upthrust of the distribution too happening. So I would say that there's a chance while we have these fluctuations, this actually isn't the final high point for the upthrust of the distribution. It may come at a later time while these fluctuations happen, and eventually it goes all the way to the upthrust of the distribution before returning to this older uptrend started back in April. So that may be a more likely scenario rather than coming down to the yellow and then hit up again, but that's just my wild guess. I'll keep the lines over here, and I hope in a few weeks time, maybe in 2 weeks time, I will come to revisit again and see where Aerodrome is. So from the big picture perspective, it's likely that the buying climax is still not there yet, unless the popularity of Aerodrome has really declined to the extent that the buying climax was at 1.49 level that happened this week. Otherwise, if the support is still there, the popularity still exists, the project is still active with an active community and development team, then the likelihood of seeing a 2.03 level or even 2.21 level is still there. So if you have requested this, hope you like it, and I'll revisit this in 2 weeks time.